Hello, everyone. This is Steve, and I'm here today with Nik Stouffer. Hi, Nick.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Oh, it is my privilege and pleasure. Thanks for joining us. Let's start this way. I am calling you a freedom fighter. Do you think yourself as a freedom fighter?
Yeah, I do. I
What
do.
makes you a fighter? Why?
So this is probably going to be different than probably what anybody has said. I gave it a lot of thought, and then I determined I've always been this way. I've never not fought for absolutely everything that I wanted. When I graduated from graduate school with my math degree, my mom bought me this t-shirt, and it had like a herring with a frog in its mouth, but the frog had its arms around the throat of the heron, and it said, "Never give up."
Wow.
There
She
is
knew you.
nothing. Yeah, yeah, she did. She did. Um, it was since I was three. She said I just was difficult and argumentative, and always needed my way and needed perfect conditions and always spoke my mind. So, there wasn't any defining moment in my life where I could say that I changed. Like I was this wallflower that miraculously changed into this fighter. That didn't happen for me. I was always like this, and this is basically the natural progression of where I ended up. So I just think I would have always ended up here as a freedom fighter. But I didn't start as a freedom fighter. I fought for my own personal things. I fought for my kids. I fought for other people for things that I thought were right. But, on a larger scale, that's how I ended up here.
Well, here you could be a freedom fighter in 1,000 different ways today. Why are you in the arena that you're currently in? What is it that's motivating you here?
Well, it was really COVID. I mean, that was I was never really pleased with the overreach of the state. That's something that always bothered me. I went crazy over the fact that they made us go in those back scatter machines. I would refuse and get the back pat down every time because I wanted to make it as difficult and slow up the line, because I figured if I slowed up the line enough that people would be inconvenienced and they'd want to change. And if everybody did that, it would have changed, but nobody did it. And I still won't go through that machine because I feel like it's a violation of my person. I feel like it's a violation of my rights as a American citizen. I shouldn't have to be constantly looked at in underneath my clothes to determine whether I'm a threat or not. You can talk to me for 5 minutes and find out. I mean, especially when I'm traveling with my two little kids. No terrorist has ever blown up a plane traveling with their young children. You can't concentrate on that when you have little kids with you.
That's right.
So, so I didn't like that. But when COVID hit, the reaction from the state and everybody else, I was furious beyond furious. And actually, Kristen Sinclair, who was on here previously, and we discussed how it just drove us crazy. It drove me crazy that everybody just complied right away, that they agreed with the lockdowns. That what really drove me crazy was when they were shutting down the parks. I thought that was insane. No virus would kill you outside while you're swinging on the swings in the spring. That was nuts. The masks in the school infuriated me. Masks on people. I would go out all the time without a mask during the time where everybody was wearing a mask. Not only because I do have a medical condition that prevents me from wearing a mask, but also I wasn't doing it and I didn't care. I was confronted by a large 6-foot man at the Home Depot who was getting in my face with his mask on. And he was screaming at me and he says, "You bet." And then he's screaming at me, "You better step back." And I leaned right into him and said, "What are you going to do? Hit me?" And then he like froze and then ran away. I was like, "Yeah, run away." Because I'll take it to the level and I don't care what happens to me. I don't care because I'm very principle based. I'm not fearful. I think I'm missing that gene. I don't have fear of being ostracized from people. I don't care if I'm excommunicated from the communities that I'm within. I don't care if someone thinks that I'm a terrible, I just don't care. I don't care if you think I'm a great person. I don't care if you think I'm a horrible person. I have a very strong sense of self where I'm confident enough to know who I am. So your opinion really doesn't matter. Now, when it comes to the opinion of my husband, my kids, my family, that's important because I know them and I value them. So I value their opinion. But I have a lot of haters who come on, and a lot of people see me interacting with the haters in a way that they just can't imagine doing because their ego would be so hurt. And I don't have that. I mean, sometimes I get irritated and I just don't want to deal with it. But, you know, I don't have that. And I was on Facebook constantly telling people not to do this, not to agree to the lockdown, not to shut the parks down, not to start calling police on kids riding bikes. And I was deleted from a lot of community groups. Like I was an admin on the Mount Laurel page, and I ended up leaving because I had a huge fight with a doctor on there. And the doctor was insisting that everybody needed to lock down. And I don't see any apologies from these people that they were wrong. I was right. I mean, I'm a medical biostatistician. I do statistical analysis on clinical trials and population health data. So when the pandemic started, I started tracking it. I started looking at every article that came out and the state websites that would identify the age and the gender of the person that was afflicted with COVID and went to the hospital. And when I started seeing the spread, it was majorly from places like golfing centers where people golf and gather, and doctors' offices. A lot of doctors had COVID and were spreading it to their patients. It was not from kids playing on the playground outside, and it was never kids who were in it from the beginning. And after 4 weeks of that, I realized this is ridiculous. There's nothing going on here that would warrant any of this behavior. And I knew who the British person who modeled the models after this COVID. I knew he over modeled everything. Like he was so strict with his modeling. He always assumed that everybody or everything was going to die because he did it on a livestock. He's done it on bird flu. He's done it on other diseases. And he's always outrageously over exaggerated. And when I tried to share this and explain this, I was banned on Facebook. I was blocked. And then when they started coming up with the vaccine, I thought, this is ridiculous. Again, it's ridiculous. I mean, not ridiculous for people who were older, because people over 65 did tend to react to COVID poorly. I mean, they did have bad outcomes, but everybody younger, as long as you were in good health, and not the good health that the newspapers told you were good health, the good health, like you see this morbidly obese woman and they say, woman with no health problems died. Come on. We all know that being heavy cuts your weight short. I mean, that's just the way it is, but we're going to pretend that it's not because we don't want to make anybody feel bad about themselves. You know, I mean, it's ridiculous. Everybody's just this feel good. Nothing's ever wrong, but it's only wrong when the government tells you it's wrong. And then you have to shut down and completely change your life for whatever whim they have. And you have to run out and get vaccinated. And personally, because I'm a biostatistician and I do a lot of clinical trials, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but I don't take new products. I wait. I don't take anything new. If it's not in the market for 5 years, I won't take it. I won't have my kids take it unless I'm dying. Unless I'm on deathbed and they told me maybe I had 6 months to live, I would take it, but there's no way. And from what I could see from COVID, that wasn't killing enough people the way, to warrant any sort of large interaction. And I really thought that actually the vaccine would work in the beginning. And I told people it's going to work. And, we're going to it's just going to be the end when people get vaccinated. But it didn't, because they were over testing and over reporting and forcing people to continually test, like teachers every week and everybody who entered the doctor's office. So the more you test, the more disease you have, but nobody has any symptoms. So, it's like, just because you have a X amount of virus in your nose doesn't mean it's actually affecting you at all. It could just be sitting there dead. You don't know. So, they continued with this nonsense. And, and I was like, oh, it's going to work. Don't worry about it. And then when it didn't work, when Delta came out, I go, well, this doesn't work. By the end of summer 2021, I was like, this isn't working. It's not, everybody still has a virus. Now, I was told by a lot of anti-vax people that it didn't work. And I didn't believe them because it still had the potential. The data wasn't in for me to see it. But once I saw, that, I was like, this is ridiculous. At this point, like, we've got to move on, it's not working. And then now, and like I said, I don't take any new product in pharmaceutical that's within 5 years, unless it's been 5 years in the population, because there's no way to test safety in clinical trials. We test for efficacy and we lightly go over safety. And the only reason why that is the trials would take so long for safety that it would deny life-saving drugs to people who need them. So people want a cure now. They don't want a cure in 10 years when we've determined, or 5 years actually, when we've determined it's safe to look up long-term. Because after 5 years, you can see the potential of the heart indications, the liver indications, how it affects all your organs, how it affects your skin, how it affects your bone. So, that after 5 years, people don't want to wait another 5 years for their drug. And so that's why. So this all started because of COVID, because I was always like kind of loud because I wanted chickens in my town, and I got chickens in my town. I wanted to change the math program because it was absolutely garbage. I changed the math program, but I ended up pulling my kids out of school and sending them to public school and then sending them to Catholic school anyway, because I still don't like the math program that they chose, because I think that's really important. And I think public education absolutely has been dumbing everything down. By the time you leave 8th grade, you should be able to read, write, and do basic math programs. Basic math operations like just addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and fractions. And that's it. And the kids don't know any of that. They don't know enough. So that's why I sent my kids to a more traditional schooling, even though we're not Catholic and my kids aren't baptized. And people want to know why I'm in Catholic school. And I said, well, the math and the writing. So, right. And that's, where we are now with that. So, but like the whole thing, well, you've interviewed a lot of my friends. The whole thing with COVID was just a tragedy. It was just the entire response. I pulled my son out to homeschool him because I didn't want him to go through that stress of constantly having the windows open, being forced to walk in arrows at the school, being screamed at when you got too close to your friends. And my daughter, who was in a private Catholic school, stayed in the school. And I think it was the worst mistake she made, because I allow my teenagers to have some decision over their life. When you become in high school, I feel like you get buy-in to your life, because you're now becoming an adult and you have to make a lot of the decisions and learn on your own from your mistakes. And maybe that one I shouldn't have allowed her to learn, because they're all suffering from it. All of the kids between 14 and 20 are weird. They're weird. They have anxiety. They have PTSD. They don't know how to interact with each other. And, I try very hard with my daughter to help regain some of the things she's lost, but she lost 2 years of her life that she's not getting back. My son just finally went back to private school this year, and he said, all the kids are weird. What's going on? And I said, you lived in a bubble. You lived in a bubble for 2 years. You didn't know. The boys are more violent. The girls are just mental wrecks. So, this is the consequences. And I don't hear any apologies. I don't hear anybody saying, oh, I'm so sorry we made this mistake. And people don't even recognize how screwed up the kids are. I just was doing some state statistics this week, and there was a 2,000% increase in children identifying as non-binary. That's not even switching your gender, like from boy to girl. Non-binary, a 2,000% increase from 2019 to enrollment this year, September 2021. So don't tell me that isn't because of the way we tortured these kids for 2 years. Don't tell me that wasn't the effect on this. Because they had no face and no identity, and they couldn't interact or read facial cues from people. They lost their humanity. And now they're looking for something and they go, well, I just don't identify as anything. They want to take that away from themselves. So it's just, the whole thing is just disturbing. So that's how I ended up here. And because I'm such a loud advocate and very passionate and very pushy, a lot of people jump on my cart. I'm just zooming through and everybody's just hopping on. So it's kind of hard to, at this point, break away from this whole thing, since I developed a following, and people really do need my help. So I try to help as much as I can. And I can't say no, because I feel so bad that everybody's still in this situation, particularly with the kids. And even if, you know, I shield my kids from all of the terrible things that are happening in the world right now, they still have to live with the other kids. You know, they're still in this world with that generation. And if I don't help fix them, then there will be no one for my kids to interact with, speak to, have relationships with. And I can see this now because, you know, a lot of these kids are messed up and most of the parents don't have any idea what's going on with their kid, what the school's doing. I was always very on top of stuff and always talked with my kids to force information out of them. I never judged what they had to say. I gave them my opinion. I allowed them to give me their opinion, you know, and like I tried not to shame them for their opinion, but I still tried to change their opinion like I do everybody else, which I've been pretty successful with that. You know, but they will tell me how they think and they feel. And I think a lot of people are missing that, you know, with their kids. You've got to get in their mind and know what they're thinking. You know, you've got to say, well, what do you think about this? I share news stories with them. Well, what do you think about this? Well, what do you think about that? I mean, even my son's been sheltered because he was homeschooled, and then he's in a Catholic, he was in a Catholic school when he went back to school. And he said to me, he watches, my kids are online. I know people don't agree with having their kids online. My kids are online and I monitor everything they do, and anything I don't like, we have a discussion about. So they're very responsible when it comes to, because I think just not allowing your kid on the internet and then releasing them when they're 18 is a bad idea, because you didn't get to train them. It's like just saying, you know, you never let your kid outside and all of a sudden you let them go work in New York City and they have to figure that out. Like you have to guide them at some point in their life how to do stuff. And you can't start doing it when they're 18 because it's too late. So my son watches stuff on the internet and he was watching Mr. Beast. And one of the main characters, Chris, decided that he was a female. So it changed the whole dynamic of the show. And my son said, I don't think I'm going to watch this. It's awkward and weird. Everybody looks uncomfortable. Nobody knows how to act. And I don't understand why Chris is so selfish and has to force everybody into this situation when they don't want to be. Why would he do this to all his friends? So you see, like, my kid already, I cultivated him to think a certain way, to think about other people instead of, oh, Chris needs to live his own life and be his own, you know, person, and everybody has to accept that and love it. You don't have to accept everything that people do, and you don't have to love everything they do. You can love the person, you cannot like the things that they do. And my kids have learned that. I think a lot of people don't understand that as a thing. And you have to understand that you have limits and boundaries, and you have to set those on other people. And you have to actively, with your kids and with adults, with your own parents, with anybody, you have to actively reset your boundaries and say, my boundaries here, I will not cross that line. I do not accept anything past this point, and I don't have to interact or do things with you if you decide to cross this line. And when it comes to being name called, people are so easily swayed when they're called a bigot. They say, oh, well, you're just a bigot. You're just a this, you're just a that. Well, you know what? You shouldn't care, because you should have enough sense of yourself to know that that's not true about you. I mean, if a 2-year-old walked up to you and told you you were ugly, would you be like, oh my God, I'm ugly, I have to go get a face? No, you'd be like, okay, 2-year-old, what do you know? So you have to look at everybody like that. What do they know? How can they make determinations for your life? Why do what they think is important? It's not important. You have to really be self-aware, be aware of what you think, be aware of other things that are happening around you, and give it everything more than 2 seconds of thought. And then maybe you will be compelled to take action. That was like I didn't even take a breath.
It was great. So we know you have the courage gene.
Yes, I do. And I have the risk gene. I actually tested that on 23andMe. I have a high risk level. I'm a big risk taker. So
Really?
is my husband, and so are my 2 kids.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, what else keeps you strong though? I mean, do you have a belief system? I know you have a very strong belief system in terms of how you view yourself, but are there any sources in your life that you tap into that sustain you, that give you strength?
Well, I grew up in a Judeo-Christian world where society followed a certain set of rules, and I was happy to follow those rules. And I modeled my life after that. Now, all of a sudden, everybody wants to change those rules. I don't particularly need a church to guide me, but I do allow my friends, my family to help guide me. And it's going back and forth with other people, but valued people who were thinkers. Not people, don't bother asking people who didn't think past the first sentence when you spoke. Don't ask them for their opinions if they're not well thought out. Like, you cannot like someone's opinion, but you have to be able to listen and understand what they had to say. And if that doesn't apply to you, then you can move on. But, I think it helps when you surround yourself with people who are strong themselves and are centered and not crazy. Because I think there's a lot of mentally ill people running around unmedicated, like a lot. And, I had worked in mental illness and CNS and in health, and I can see, like, it's very important if you have mental health issues to get those fixed, because you're no good to you and you're no good to anybody else when you can't think straight. And after this pandemic, I think a lot of that stuff made people crazy. And there's a lot of people that I had to eliminate from my life because they were too, you can't, you got to recognize who's stable and who's not stable, and move towards those who are stable. And I can see things like when I'm on the internet, I will see fights within on people's walls with other people. And I think, why don't you block them? They're obviously unstable. There's something wrong with them. Why are you letting them speak to you in that way and give this opinion of you that is incredibly derogatory on your wall in front of everyone to see? That they wouldn't call you on the phone and say, hey, I think blah, blah, blah. Like, why do you even entertain this? And half of it doesn't even make any sense. It sounds like a ranting from a loon. And that's what I tell people. I was like, why are you letting people rant at you? I don't know. You have to find quality people to fill your life up with, and take those people and listen to what they have to say and make your own decisions. And that keeps you centered. Nobody's an island unto themselves. And some of the people that I'm very good friends with are very religious. I have one friend that keeps on telling me to convert back to Catholicism and come home to Rome. There's a lot of different people in my life with a lot of different opinions, and a lot of them do have a strong religious founding. I just don't. And I don't know why. So I couldn't tell you what pushes me to be conservative. I think it's because I'm incredibly logical and I kind of follow that. Like, I think out everything I do in terms of chess moves and strategy 7 or 8 times ahead. So when I'm about to take an action and it's a risky action, I will go through every scenario of the worst possible outcome as I'm standing there before I decide to do the action that I'm doing, and then determine what could possibly go wrong and what am I willing to live with. And so I think most of it's internal. It's that type of thinking that people do not have. People do not have that 3, 4, 5, 30, 70 step level thinking. They think maybe 1, 2 steps, and they don't think about how the rest of it's going to go. And that's why people are unable to take risks, because they're unable to calculate their risk. So I think everything I do is kind of more math based than emotion based,
I do know it seems though that the process of going through the permutations and confronting and finding your bottom lines, like, I'm not willing to go further than this. There's logic there, but do you feel it also is a way of self-empowering? Do you find that internally it strengthens you to do that?
It really does. I don't have those same internal struggles that other people do. I really don't. So because I make all my decisions and then reassess to determine whether that decision was the right decision. And I don't always get it right. It's not like I'm perfect. And what I could have missed and what it can improve the next decision. A lot of people make decisions and they're afraid to look back on their mistakes because it makes them feel bad. I've always told my kids that the more mistakes you make, the better you're going to become, because now you know the scenario you're not going to do the next time. And even when they were doing bad in school, I'm like, that's okay. Did you go through all the questions and figure out which ones you did wrong? A lot of times people feel too bad about themselves and they don't want to go back and look where they failed in order to change. And so you're never going to change and you're never going to improve unless you take risks, calculate the probability of what you're willing to accept, and then finally reevaluate the end game of that trial that you did and determine whether that was something that you'd repeat or if you would do it differently.
You're obviously very well self-contained, but nonetheless, are there people, and you obviously gain strength from people that strengthen you. Are there any leaders or mentors that you have in whatever discipline that you look to for guidance?
You know, I see people, different people give me different things. Not one person can give you all the things that you need, you know, from people. Not everybody can accommodate your thoughts and your feelings. Like I'm a huge gardener and a chicken owner, and I end up dragging people along with me that too. So I will follow people who have more experience than me, but it's typically people that I know. I don't like celebrity and I don't choose to follow celebrities because they always disappoint you because you never really knew them in the first place. So the people that I look to are like Melanie Dragone, Kristen, and others like that who live their life a certain way. And I always reassess and ask them their opinion. So they would be more of the people I'm modeling myself after rather than someone famous.
Got it. At this point in your career as a natural freedom fighter, are you doing your life's work right now? Can you see yourself doing anything that's more important?
No, not really. um, you know, even it's actually really interfering with my regular job too, where I actually get paid. And my husband said, you should probably just start monetizing this so that you can, you know, afford to do this full time instead of part time, or because there's a lot of mistakes. There's a lot of things. I only maybe, I mean, today I'm supposed to be working. And this morning I'm writing an article about the number of non-binary children in New Jersey schools. And then I'm doing this interview with you, and I haven't done any actual work I get paid for this morning. You know, and I end up working too much because I'm trying to, because like I have to contribute to this household too. It's not like, you know, my husband's just going to work and then I'm just going to go, hey, let me go fight all the dragons with my sword and shield. You know, I have to,
Right.
I have two kids in college to pay for them. So I have to do some contribution. So I'm trying to think about how to do that. But in the meantime, I really like my job. Like, you know, you would think that someone who was in the forefront of fighting or being combative or constantly toiling with people would like this quiet kind of math job where you just present your findings and you just display it for people. You'd think that that would be conflicting personality, but I really like doing it. I'm doing a bunch of different studies now on some really interesting drugs, on some really interesting procedures that are really going to help people. And, you know, I like the science behind it. I like the contribution that I'm making. And I really do like math and programming. And I think I like too many things. I think there's so many things in this world that I like and enjoy. It's really hard for me to pick something and just stick with that. I mean, I love gardening. My garden's off the hook. I've been sharing a lot of times. I'm uncomfortable of looking too prideful at all of the things that I've accomplished because, you know, I don't want anybody to think that I'm better than them because they can do what I do too. They don't have to, they could do it too. You just have to start. You just take one step, the next step, and you'll be right where I am. So I hate to look like, oh, look all this done, but I've been sharing my garden out with everybody because I'm really, really proud of it. I mean, I've spent hours and hours and hours on it. And everybody's like, wow, your place looks like Longwood Gardens. I was like, yeah. And I planted 99% of these trees myself and the bushes and the plants. And I designed it. And I, you know, the hardscaping, I obviously had someone do because that would be a little bit difficult. But, you know, like all the plans and everything are mine. And it's really like, if you have an interest in something and you want it, just start doing it. Stop being concerned and asking questions. And, look for other people that will help, guide you on your journey, interpersonal people and friends, and pick the best traits of them that you want to emulate and try to be like them, and try to model yourself after them. But the traits you don't like, try to not do that. When you see somebody and you see it from a different perspective, and you see, oh, I see somebody, because I fight with people a lot. And so I'll watch people fight with other people and I'll think, yeah, I shouldn't do that. I do that, and I shouldn't do that. And this is why, because I'm looking at it objectively from the outside. Or there's another woman I work for, Angelique, and she on the New Jersey Project Facebook page got into it with one of these activists who were showing up at the Board of Ed meetings, one of the trans activists. I mean, the girl isn't trans herself, but she's an activist for the LGBT community. And while I was just saying things that were just insulting, she went out of her way to get into this woman's mind, get into her world, and kind of, even her out a little bit. Whether she changed her mind, I don't know, but the woman was less combative, and she was more willing to interact with Angelique than she was with any of us. And it sounded like she was able to find common ground with this woman, because she agreed that 12-year-olds shouldn't be on puberty blockers. She agreed that children shouldn't get genital mutilation at a young age to certify their genderness, their idea of what their gender is. So, she was able to make that connection. And I think, geez, I could be more like that. But I don't want to. It doesn't feel good. I said, outwardly, I know I should be like that. But inwardly, I know that's a serious struggle for me. It's really hard. When I was a kid at the dinner table, we used to play the insult game. Probably not the best game to play with kids, but we would hurl insults at each other. And it wasn't in a way that would be hurtful. Well, sometimes it was, but it was really to make us stronger and help with our comeback game when we were verbally attacked at school. So it was like an exercise in going back and forth. And people wonder why I'm so quick with the comebacks. And it's because a lot of practice. But it's not always good. I mean, I'm not going to say that don't model your behavior after my behavior. With that, I would recommend go look up Angelique, find out what she's doing, and do what she does.
I get it. So let's wrap up this way. Think in terms of legacy, think in terms of how you want to be remembered. Think in terms of what your children and the people you're affecting, what are the most important things they should remember about you that will last multiple generations?
That what do they want to remember about me? That's a tough question, because I always think, well, in like a million years, nobody will know. So it won't.
Well, let's
really
think in terms of your
because
grandchildren.
I think about the time curve, and I'm like,
Right.
well, in an extended period of time, will anybody really remember? Does it really matter? Like,
Well, let's assume your grandchildren care and they want to know.
okay, well, we'll do my grandchildren. Well, I hope they understand. I hope they learn something and improve themselves. Not that I think that they need to remember me in a certain way, but I hope that they are able to become more secure in themselves, to be more self-aware. Like, I'm more concerned with them taking lessons from me on what to do and what not to do, on how to be remembered, so that they can improve their own lives. And one of the things I hope people take away from me is that, like, with this whole gender nonsense, which is really just bothering me immensely, that you can have different personalities and different likes and not likes as a female, but still be a female. And you can have different likes and wants as a male and still be a male. Like you're still a boy, you're still a girl, but that doesn't mean that you have to fit in society's realm of what they think you should be. You don't have to be somebody for somebody else, and you don't have to present in a way that's comfortable for other people. But you have to keep in mind that when you do act like yourself, or you are your true self, that you will get some feedback that may not be comfortable to the crowd. And so it's not that I don't want to fight transgenderism as it is. I want people, it's the wrong fight they're having. They want to fight to just make up all these new labels. We need to get back to the moment where there are no labels. We need to accept that if a boy likes to wear nail polish, he just likes to wear nail polish. That doesn't make him a girl. So as a non-conforming adult myself, or female myself, which you go, well, you look like you're wearing pink, your hair's kind of long, and you do have makeup on. So maybe you're not. I do that because I like to not look old. When I was young, I didn't wear any makeup. I more identify as a 20-year-old than I do as whatever age I am now. And I don't want to be old. So there's a different reason for that. But the thing is that, I don't have the nails. I can't do pretty lady nails because I work with my hands. I'm in the garden. I have dirt under them. I just fixed my chicken coop because I needed removable bars in it. So I sawed them out. I put in new bars. How much construction work I've ever done? Not that much, but I just did it because I wanted it. And removable roof bars, by the way, are so much easier to clean. Highly recommend. They get in the way of all of the things that I like to do with my hands. So I have to have short, like these are actually really short. It doesn't look like that because I have long nail beds, but they are really short nails. And I don't want to wear high heels because I think they're ridiculous and uncomfortable. I don't want to shop with you because I find that boring and I would rather order things on the internet. I don't fall into those things. When I was a kid, my dad called me up and he said, hey, when you were a kid, he says, you would have been one of those girls that they try to make into a boy. He said, that would be you, because my personality is a little bit intense than the average female. And I am a little bit more ballsy than the average female, even though I don't have the muscles to back it up. I mean, I basically have a mouth that my muscles can't support, which, I somehow, I'm still alive. So I guess it's okay.
Right.
But, people have to really, I'm really concerned about this next generation and their need to constantly label themselves as male or female in a way that doesn't really define male or female. Like if you want to wear eyeliner, then wear eyeliner if you like it. Even if you're a guy, like there's a lot of celebrity males that wear them, like the guy who played Captain Jack Sparrow. I can't think of his name.
Right.
He wears eyeliner.
Right.
He's still a man, like you can do improvements and stuff to your face that you like, doesn't mean that you've changed your DNA. It's ridiculous. And then we want to talk about, well, how you feel inside and put that into different labels for people. Everybody feels different inside. How can we sit here and say, well, this I like is masculine and this I like is feminine and this I like is masculine? Like I'm always insulted when people just assume that I'm masculine, because when they talk to me, my voice is high enough and my mannerisms are female enough that they go, wait a minute, you are a female. But online, I seem a little bit more rough and tumble. But when it comes from this face and these boobs and this mouth, it softens it up a little bit. And the little chuckles that I do that you can't hear online, it softens up what I say. So it doesn't sound as harsh. So, I'm off topic again.
No, the topic is you. So you've
Oh,
been
the
on
topic's
topic.
me. Oh, okay. The topic. I love this. My favorite topic, me.
I get it. And I tell you, you've been very kind in sharing you. And I will assure you that there's going to be many people that see this and hear this, and they're going to be envious in a good way, because you have your act together and it's what he's equipped you for leadership. And people are going to take little bits and pieces and then say, I got to be like her to the best I can. So I want to
Some
thank
things, yes.
you.
Other things, no, don't do what I do.
Well,
There's
they'll
other
take
things
your
like
they'll take your advice and they'll sift out the stuff that they shouldn't do. And they'll take your advice and they'll say, but these good kernels, that's going to work for me.
Yeah, I had a friend the other day who asked me something she was going on. She was having an argument with her husband. And I said, well, this is what I would say, but I'm not going to recommend you do that because I know that's incredibly mean and unhelpful. So
Right.
don't do what I do.
Right.
Call somebody else who would help you fix this problem and not make it worse.
That's a good, you're giving somebody the idea and it's up to them to implement that in the way that's good for them.
Yes, yes.
I get that. Thank you for great advice, Nik Stouffer.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
You're welcome.